everyone. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you guys get excited when you hear from my guest today, as I did when I heard his first story. For those of you that are tuning in live, we welcome you. For those of you that are tuning in to watch the replay, get ready. Even in the replay, I'm sure that you're going to have so much fun listening to this guy. As you know, we decided to start a spotlight on nonprofit organizations in the area doing tremendous things. This gentleman that I'm have on my show today as the guest, he absolutely blew me away when we started talking. He's got a pretty awesome event coming up. So I want to bring him on. We're going to talk to Jeffery Krumm of Leap 316. And let's start off with the easy part. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Tony, well, first of all, Tony, thank you so much for the opportunity for that introduction. So a little bit about me. I am Jeff Krumm. I am born and raised here in the St. Louis area. So a proud, St. Louis Blues, proud St. Louis Cardinals fan, born and raised in the area. I am a Christ follower, and I could not be more excited for the opportunity and just this vision that God has placed in my heart. I'm a former first responder, worked on an ambulance for a number of years, have a background in firefighting, and currently work as an investment advisor here in the Baldwin, St. Louis area.
Investment advisor,
Mm-hmm.
prior fireman, and
Yep.
neither one of those two have anything to do with what we brought you on to talk about today.
No, they do not. No, sir.
So let's jump ahead just a little bit.
Yeah.
I know that you told me your story, and I've got some people that are watching. Let's give them a little bit of background. You obviously like being challenged.
I
correct?
do. That would be fair. Yes. Yes, I do.
And is it also safe to say that you might be just a bit of an adrenaline junkie?
A little bit. Yes. I
Okay.
do like adventure. Yes. Yes.
All right. We've built this up enough for just a little while. Tell me about your upcoming event that is
Mhm.
planned to take place starting March 16th.
March 16th.
316.
So Leap 316 is our Kickstarter event for a larger ministry project, the ministry project being called Leap of Faith. So this was an idea, rather a thought that had been given to me about now going on 6.5, 7 years ago. I had just at the time started working on the ambulance, and here I was in the back of the truck. I had what I thought at the time was just a crazy idea. Again, you said it, Tony. It was just something fun. It was kind of adrenaline, and it was challenging. I thought it was something that nobody had done before, and I had considered pursuing it. But all those years ago, I didn't know how it connected with God, and since it didn't connect with God, it had nothing to do with my ambulance career at the time and getting more involved and becoming a paramedic firefighter at the time. And it had nothing to do with church. And it also had nothing to do with my career as becoming an investment advisor. I just kept putting it off. And it was about 2 years ago, speaking to a good friend at church, that he really encouraged me just to pursue it, to pray into it, and see what doors would open. And doors have just been flying open. It's really just been hard to explain. It's been an incredible journey, but the goal, what we're wanting to do on March 16th, is I'm going to tandem skydive all 50 states in 50 days.
So for
Yeah.
those that are just tuning in, on the bottom of the
Mhm.
screen, it says 50, 50, 50. You heard that
Mhm.
right. He is planning to jump 50 times, skydive,
Mhm.
50
Yes.
times, 50 states, 50
Mhm.
days.
That's correct. Yeah.
How in the world do you come up with an idea that says, let me jump in such an extreme manner this way?
Mhm.
Obviously, you say it tied back into God.
Mhm.
How did this whole I'm going to jump 50 times come into play?
It was quite literally, I was in the back of the ambulance. I was working on a regular patient, somebody that we took, several times a week. And really the idea just came to me was skydiving 50 states in 50 days. And I began researching just in that moment to see if anybody had done it before. And what I quickly learned is that nobody had attempted to do this in 50 days. Albeit there have been a handful of people, I believe there's three. My understanding is there is a couple that have accomplished this. It took them a couple years, and there's another individual that accomplished this feat, but it also took them, a much longer time frame to do it. So again, I would go back to, it was really just an idea. It was just to see that I felt God had planted all of those years ago, and just my curiosity and wanting to know if anybody had attempted to do something like that before is what caused me to go and look it up.
That's
Yeah.
that's amazing. I'm excited to watch and follow as you jump. I hope that while
Yeah.
you do this, that you have updates, daily updates, or even
Yes.
live or something that you've planned.
We do. Yeah. We
The
plan on doing some live updates, and of course we plan on filming everything.
that's awesome. So my
Hmm.
question, obviously,
Yeah.
whenever I hear of somebody that is taking, quote, no pun intended, a leap of faith as you are,
Hmm.
what are you hoping to project or to see as a result of this? I mean, granted, it's a
Yeah.
tremendous feat. You go down in history as completing it. It's phenomenal. But what do
Sure.
you hope this accomplishes? What are you reaching out for to see once you accomplish this?
Well, let me first say that, it's no, I have no desire for the accolade. It's just a byproduct that it happens to be a world record. That by no means is, why I sought this out. What we hope to accomplish through this, and what I really feel that God is sharing with me, is that we need to encourage people, even before pandemic and COVID and different things like that were our household, conversation and name. We felt years ago, just being on the truck, I started seeing a lot more patients that were teen and preteen that were being treated for anxiety. They were being treated for depression, for, attempted suicide. So I was seeing firsthand, kids, people that were hurting, that needed to be encouraged. And then you fast forward, and I'm given this idea, and I'm praying into and asking God to connect the dots. And where I really felt that God is leading us and leading this journey and this vision, what we want to see come out of it is a message of hope, a message of faith is action. If there's something that you've been thinking about that you want to do, whether that be write a book, maybe you're supposed to write a song, act in a play, start a business, whatever that might be that you're supposed to do, you reason about it long enough, and maybe you don't have anybody encouraging you. Maybe that's the one piece, maybe that's the one ingredient and the whole recipe that you're missing out on, is you don't have anybody to encourage you to say, go and do this, pursue it. And I'd want out of this for people to see that when you think something is impossible, through God, it is possible. And if there's something that He's encouraging you to do, you need to go do it. But furthermore, know that when you do, that there's a community of people like myself, like Toney, that want to encourage you. We're not going to allow you to fail. And that there's a God that's going to encourage you. And that if He gave you something to do, there's a reason why He gave it to you to do it. So that's what we want people to see out of this.
That's awesome. So you mentioned,
Yeah.
and
Hmm.
and I apologize for some of the people that may be joining us late that didn't
Hmm.
haven't heard the whole conversation. But we actually talked prior to setting this up. We talked a little bit. So some of the
Hmm.
things that I referenced may are coming from our previous conversation.
Yeah.
One of which is, and it stuck with me, is the fact that you said that once you decided to take that step to let God do what He needed to do with you, that things started falling in place. Can you
Yeah.
give us a little bit of example of what you mean by that? What happened to make things get this ball rolling so that in less than 2 months you're starting to
Yeah.
jump?
Well, and I'll say this, it's been an ongoing process. So there's still, there's still some things that we need to have fall into place. But early on, it was just people that would be put on my path. It would just be, for an example, I would talk to individuals, I would talk to people, and I would ask them for advice. And in asking them and seeking certain people out for advice, not even necessarily talking about skydiving, not even necessarily talking about Christ. We would just get into a conversation, and before you knew it, we would find out that they owned a production company, or they did web design, or whatever it was in the moment. I was seeking people out, and doors like that just continued to open. Bible verses would just come to me. I've had different dreams, different things that have just occurred where certain Bible verses just wouldn't let me go. For an example, would be Hebrews 1:11. Now faith is confidence in what we hope for, and assurance about what we do not see. So Hebrews 1:11 kept popping up early on, and I didn't know what it meant, and I kept praying into it. And I remember early on having a conversation with a woman who's now a very dear friend, and going and talking with her, and somehow we got on the conversation of tattoos, something as silly as a tattoo. And then the evening before, Hebrews 1:11 just would not let me go. It was popping up in my Bible, it was popping up in my devotionals, it was popping up in my dream, it was popping up in videos I was watching. And then the very next day, I'm walking with this woman who's a very dear friend now, and Hebrews 1:11 just happened to be the tattoo on her wrist. So we've just seen in very real ways God just popping up, maybe through a conversation, through a devotional, just different things like that. For an example, I remember that we had a very real need to fund our website, and I didn't know how we were going to fund the website. And I had dealt with a little bit of heartache. And as I was dealing with this heartache, I just really started leaning into God. Just really started praying for Him to provide for the website that we were working on, for our needs to be met. And I recall in that moment that my phone just kept ringing. I would get off the phone with somebody, a good friend, who just felt that they needed to call and reach out to me. And as soon as that phone call would end, almost instantaneously, somebody else would call me back with a word of encouragement. And I had just decided that I wasn't going to allow this heartache, I wasn't going to allow this low point to be something that held me back, that kept me down. And then through those conversations, a really dear friend of mine called and said, I just felt like I was supposed to call you and send you a check. We hadn't spoken in a while. I hadn't called them. They literally just called me and said, I felt called to give you these resources. This is just something that God had pressed on their heart. And lots of stories like that.
That's awesome. I couldn't
Yeah.
help notice as you're telling the story,
Hmm.
you obviously get excited about it, but
Yes.
my eyes kept being drawn above your head. And I don't
Okay.
know if you did this on purpose, but the sign behind you says believe and succeed. So
Okay.
as you're telling the story, I see your shoulders come forward as you're getting excited about this.
Hmm.
So this is obviously huge for you, and
Yeah.
no small feat in itself to begin
Mhm.
with.
No, no, sir. No, and that was not on purpose. This is just quite frankly just my office. So the office I work in, I'm very blessed. That in itself is a testimony in itself, just to be in the office and to be where I'm sitting. I had been involved in the investment advising with the company that I'm with now, going on about 10, 15 years ago, maybe a little bit longer. But I had made enough of an impression on my senior vice president at the time, that he started pursuing me, and he wanted me to get back involved in the business. At the time, I had no desire. I was wanting again to get more involved with the back involved in the firefighting. That's why I was on the ambulance, to get that experience. But he reached out to me. He had worked with thousands of people over the years, and I was one of a handful of people that he sought out to get back in the business and work with. So seeing paintings or seeing, pictures and stuff like that around our office that say things like "believe and succeed," or it would be hard for me to set up without something like that being behind me. But yes,
I just thought
yeah,
it was kind of interesting that that's
yeah,
the phrase behind you. Now, the
yeah,
reason that I asked that is because you talked about earlier that you would see teenagers or you would see
mm,
people that would come in and you knew you had to do something.
yeah,
Your job, obviously, in this situation is not to strap a backpack or a parachute on somebody and say jump. That's not what
right.
you're out to. That's not what you're trying to tell
Mhm.
people.
No, no,
So
sir.
your goal is to actually help people to get out of that confined box and trust that outside
Yeah,
there's still, to use the pun, the parachute attached.
yeah,
How can you
absolutely.
how can you use your skill, this jump skill, to
Mhm.
connect with somebody that maybe they're not looking at jumping out of a plane, but like you said, maybe they're looking to start a business. Maybe they're looking to take that next step into college, that or maybe step out into an acting career. How do you use what you're jumping or you're
Mhm.
jumping and your story to program or to help somebody else move forward?
So I've been given permission. So I had the pleasure of speaking with the gentleman, Jeff Struker. So Jeff Struker is a very well-known author, pastor.
Mhm.
Um, and in those conversations that I had with him and just sharing our vision, but also being able to talk to a fellow Christian, he gave me permission to share part of what he felt highlighted what we're doing, but also what I would agree with at the same time. So again, it's not just about jumping out of planes, right? So how do we relate what we're doing to, like you said, becoming an actor, starting a business, or really pursuing whatever challenge that may be that you have in life? The way that I would compare skydiving to doing something like that would be, think about getting into a plane and think about the purpose of the parachute. I know that we've heard, that our mind's a parachute, in order for the parachute to work, that it has to be open. But I take it a step further, and I would say that if you're in a plane and you have a parachute, you can believe all day long that that parachute's going to work. You can believe that that parachute is functional. I can believe it's on my back. I can believe it works. I can believe in the people that made it. I can believe in its safety. I can believe in its function. I can believe that it's not going anywhere. But until I actually take that last step, until I actually take that leap of faith and jump out of the door, that parachute's meaningless. That parachute's not doing anything. So I would say to you that whatever that might be that you're wanting to do, if you're wanting to start a business, if you're wanting to, like you said, become an actor, start a podcast, whatever that might be, that you have the parachute, you're equipped, right? You've been given the ability to do it. But at some point, you have to take that leap of faith, and you need to do it. And I think where people get the most scared, certainly with skydiving or certainly with anything, and there's going to be a parallel drawn here with this. It's not that 14,000-foot drop that people get scared of. Now it is an unknown that certainly, is probably, people that are listening, that's going to give you a little bit of anxiety thinking about, free falling through the air, 14,000 feet, right? And hoping that this parachute, and having a belief and a faith that this parachute's going to work. But the scariest part, I would challenge you to believe, as it's actually that last step. It's actually making that commitment that is the hardest for people to do. It's
Right.
once I jump out the plane, I can't go back. Once I say that I'm going to start this business, I can't go back. For me, it was going public on social media. For me, it was letting my boss know and different friends and different family know, hey, this is something that I'm wanting to pursue. Actually putting at one point my financial career on the line to say, I'm going to go skydive 50 states in 50 days. And I don't know what that means for my financial career, but feeling called, feeling that this is something that I needed to do. So that's in some ways how I would encourage and inspire people and want to, help them get past what it is that they're wanting to do.
So you have a tremendous goal. You have
Tremendously.
a like I said, I'm a fan from talking to you earlier. I'm looking forward to
Thank you.
being able to follow this and different things. But
Hmm.
but we come back to that point that I asked you earlier, and
Yeah,
I actually made you stop and think about this in our conversation the last time. And
sure.
I hopefully I didn't do it in a way that was wrong, but my job as a professional fundraiser is not right now. We don't
Hmm.
think in right now. We think
Yeah,
of now plus. So
yeah.
I asked you, it's it's probably not going to be a anniversarial where you jump for the next 10 years, 50 states in 50 days.
Right,
Probably not going to do that. But
right.
you mentioned that on the anniversary, 316, which I
Hmm.
want to come back to that because I know there's a specific reason that you chose that. We're going to come back to that.
Yeah,
But
yes.
what can people do? How are they going to be able to get involved after this jump? After you get the success?
Yeah.
Where are you going with this after this jump?
Well, first off, I'm getting my holy goosebumps right now, Tony. It's just an old phrase that I've grown up with, the holy goosebumps. It's interesting that you say it that way, because when you and I first spoke, admittedly, that's something that I was preventing myself from really moving forward with. This was not knowing or not really understanding what I felt God wanted to do with this after the 50 days. Right. So that was also part of my own, even taking a leap of faith from the very beginning, was not necessarily having a clear vision of what he wanted to do beyond the 50 days. But as things have progressed, as God's revealed what I feel more to me, and we've prayed about it, what we really want to see people get involved in, where we really want to see this grow, is we want to be similar to a skateboard ministry, or the snowboarders and skiers for Christ. We want to be welcomed into the skydiving community. We want to go to these boogies. We want to go to these different events. Maybe that would be something annually that would be on 316 March 16th, and years to come, where we would do national or more organized events. But what we would like to do, and where we really need people to get involved, is going to be at the church level. So what I would like to see are churches that are going to be close to our drop zones. We would love for you to come out. We want to have some speaking engagements. We want to have, like myself, some other known authors and people come out and speak at your events. But what we want to make sure moving forward beyond the 50 days is that if we're out there at a drop zone and there's somebody that wants to take that ultimate leap of faith, not a blind leap of faith, but they want to take that ultimate leap of faith and they want to give their life over to Christ. And you talk about a fun, thrilling journey and ride, testing out that parachute. We want to make sure that when people make that decision, that there's going to be churches, that there's going to be people on the ground locally that are going to be able to help them, that are going to be able to reach out to them and provide resources for them. So that's what we want to grow into. And then what I would love to see, and again, we're going to get out and do the 50 days, and we may see some different needs, and God may have something else for us. But what I would really love to see, where I really feel led in my heart, I would love to see something like you see in the skateboarding communities and the snowboarding and skiing communities, is where you have people that are more professionals in the sport than I am, that are out there doing it, getting out there as Christ followers, and then engaging with other people. Maybe we have a discipleship program. Maybe we have something where we can train people and equip them. Am I the best skydiver in the world? No. Am I the best disciple in the world? Not necessarily, but I have my testimony, which is Jeff Krumm's. Whomever I'm speaking to now, skydiver or otherwise, you have your own unique testimony and witness to share, and that's what I would like to see have come out of this beyond the 50 days.
I have to tell you that's impressive, because again, if you're joining us live, you heard me talk about a conversation that we had prior to setting this up, and the conversation in the first time there was still some sketchiness.
Yeah.
The colors hadn't been shaded in, and you knew of something, you just didn't know what that something was going to be. So I commend you on being able to break
Yeah.
this down into a more direct goal of, after this jump, we
Yeah.
have the way to teach, to expand, to build a God following.
Yeah.
I'm going to be the first one to tell you, I will applaud you on the ground. You are not getting me in the plane, but I
Okay.
will
Fair enough.
I will be happy to applaud and be a fan of that point. So my next question is, I mentioned it earlier
Hmm.
that you're an adrenaline junkie.
Okay.
After you jump
Hmm.
50, 50, 50, 50 days,
Hmm.
50 states, 50 jumps,
Hmm.
what are you going to be able, what is there out there that is going to be able to maintain an adrenaline rush for Jeffrey, that is going to
Oh
push
gosh.
you to a
Yeah.
next point?
So I get more excited. So let's be fair here. Adrenaline for me is not necessarily the jumping out of the plane itself. Let's be honest. Like my adrenaline, I think comes from building something like this. It's building something like this for Christ. I've never thought twice about jumping out of the planes themselves and what that might look like, or getting hurt. That was never. Now I've had to have more conversations. I have had to take more preparation for that, and I've been training and I've been working out with some really good guys and gals to get me prepared. But as far as what would be next, oh gosh, if I had to list something just physical, I would say, I've always wanted to do the Talisker Whiskey Challenge, which is an Atlantic, where you row across the entire Atlantic. That's I see your face, Tony. That's something that's always intrigued me. I have a compact rower next to my bed. I plan on bringing my compact rower with me out on the 50 days in the RV and just continuing to row. It's something that I enjoy to do. So physically, that's something that I would like to do. That's more for myself. But I'm excited beyond this, just for what Christ is going to do. I don't even know what he's going to do next. And I think that's what has me the most excited is, who am I going to speak to? Am I going to get to go and have these conversations with people in other cities and other states? Is he going to take Leap 316, and maybe as we grow and we develop the program and the discipleship, are we going to talk to people in other countries? Admittedly, I started looking up, what was Leap 316 in Spanish, what was Leap 316 in different languages, because, and I'm sure you'll get to it at some point, but John 316 is, it's not just for us. I think it's in 7 or 8 times, maybe not in verse 16, but yeah, where I think the word world gets used 4 or 5 times. So this isn't just the U.S. This is meant to be for the world.
And I apologize for laughing at that, but
No, no.
I literally just finished typing the John 3:16 banner that's at the bottom of our screen right now
Yeah.
as you come back to that. So that was not planned. It was
No,
perfect
you're
timing.
okay.
But so let's jump into that for just a second.
Yeah, please.
John 3:16,
Hmm.
one of the most, if not the most famous
Uh-huh.
verses of the Bible.
Yes,
We hear this
admittedly.
all the time.
Hmm.
Christians, big, tall, small, new, old, can recite this.
Hmm.
What was it about? There had to be one particular, because you mentioned earlier Hebrews 1:11.
Yeah,
But you're doing this jump on 3:16
correct.
after this. There had to be something in that verse that stuck to you, that made you step out to say, I'm taking this challenge. Where did that come from out of that verse?
So, and admittedly, and I'm not going to try to say that it came out of the verse itself. So it actually came out of a different verse. It actually came out of Isaiah 40:28 through 31. It was
Eagle.
actually 28 through 31 that really encouraged me. And at one point, I actually took it upon myself to have my shoes made. I had some custom Nike shoes made, with the verse on the heel of the shoes, right? And it was just something about the youth not growing weary, and about something about us being given wings, that really just kept encouraging me. And John 3:16 wasn't even the verse at first that I was being encouraged by. Now, I'm a planner, right? I like challenges. That's part of, again, my adrenaline, as I love, putting things like this together and figuring out the logistics and looking at it like it's a puzzle. And so I had to figure out this route early on. How are we? That's great that we want to do this, but how are we actually going to get around to all lower 48 states, right? So one weekend, I was at my parents', and I had spent close to 20 hours in this reclining chair trying to figure out this route. And I fell asleep that night in that chair, got up the next day, and here I am for another 10, 15, 20 hours still trying to figure out this route. And I remember my parents coming by at one point and saying, like, "Are you okay? You've been sitting in the same chair for, close to 48 hours." But it was one of those things where I just felt like God had gotten a hold of me and that I needed to get this out. And once I finally checked off, okay, here's all 50 states, and I don't know if this is the best route, but I committed it to paper. And that moment, God just whispered to me, 316. And I went, okay, 316? That is not the date that I wanted to do this. No, God, I love you, but no, that is not the day that I want to do this. It's way too soon. And if we do it on that date, then I don't know if you've been to St. Louis, Toney. And I'm like asking God this, and I'm going, I don't know if you know this, but in March, we still get snow sometimes in St. Louis. We still get ice, And so I'm telling God no, and He's telling me yes, and He's telling me 316. And then He reminds me that 3:16:21, the verse actually ends on 21. So He's kind of drawn some parallels there. I'm not into numerology, but He's drawn some parallels there. Right. But what He's doing more is He's encouraging me to get into the verse. And as I got more into the verse, what He really started revealing to me is like, is there a bigger promise to stand on, right? And so what really started coming out of this verse was leap of faith. And that when you take a leap of faith, you're not taking a blind leap of faith, right? A blind leap of faith says that I'm going to jump and I don't know what to expect, but I'm just going to take that blind leap of faith and I'm going to do it. A leap of faith says, I have trust, I have hope, I have faith. I know when I take this jump, what's going to happen, what's it going to look like. I might not know everything. I may not have all of the answers, but in this case, like, I know there's a God that's going to support me. I know there's a God that's lifting me up. Even if I get everything wrong, know at the end of the day that if I take this leap of faith, that it's going to be okay. And how do we know that we can take that leap of faith? And it's because we have verses, because we have God's word that we can stand on. We have His promises. And it was in that moment I felt like God said, is there a bigger promise? Is there a bigger verse that you can stand on and take that leap of faith? And I said, no. I said, you're absolutely right. I said, okay, well, I guess there's going to be, we're wearing sombreros in Alaska. And, I was like, just trying to, then I started just thinking about all the silliness of all the different dates and the weather and the different things that we were going to have to deal with. But that's how John 3:16 came about. That's how Leap 3:16 came about, and March 16th and particular.
So that brings us, we're almost done with our time. And so you're going to jump. You said earlier that there's going to be video productions. Is it going to be broadcast on Facebook? How do people find you on Facebook? How can they find information, and how can they connect with you?
So several ways to connect with us. So you can find us on Facebook simply by going to Leap 316 on Facebook. You can find us at leap316.org. You can call me, you can email me. You can email me at Jeffery@leap316.org. Call me at 314-474-8504. We are still looking to connect with churches in different cities and different areas. We do still have some very real financial goals, to, no pun intended, to get this thing off the ground, successfully. But there's several ways for people to get involved. In the future, we do, once we go through the 50 days, we do plan on having a full-scale production video that'll be streamed. We'll see what the post-production looks like as far as where you'll be able to find that. But then, yeah, follow us on the journey. We're going to be on Facebook. We'll start opening up as we get closer to the jump dates. We'll do some Facebook Lives. We're going to do some YouTube channels. You'll be able to find us across most social media stations, channels. And then also we're going to have anchor states. So we're going to have days where, some of our dates, we want you to come out and jump with us. Now, we want you to be safe. We want you to consider what's going on in the world right now with COVID. We want to be, conscientious of that. And we don't want anybody to come out, and we don't want anybody to feel like we're going around and we're doing anything unsafe. We're taking everything into precaution. But we would encourage you, come out, once we release some of those dates, come out to a drop zone, jump with us, jump for the first time. Some other ways would be to come out to our actual anchor states where we're going to have more speaking events, and come out and hear from me and hear from some speakers, authors, pastors.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming on. This was so much fun. I am so excited. I may never be able to help you in any other way other than help you fundraise, because that's my job, or being supporter. But I promise you, I will be watching as you make these jumps. And I hope as people join in and they find a time, that they find you on Facebook, that they find time to follow your journey, because I have a feeling this is going to be super awesome. We're going to go ahead and sign off for right now. If you would go ahead and say bye to everybody, and then we'll come right back in just a minute.
Bye, my friends. Thank you for your time, and I look forward to seeing you out there. Remember, Leap 316, faith is action.
All right, fantastic. That brings us to the end of another spotlight on our fundraising nonprofit partners. I hope you could see how much excitement is coming from the other side of that screen. Tell your friends. It's a tremendous, tremendous undertaking that he's looking at. Follow him on Facebook, Leap 316, leap316.org. Any support, moral, financial, just the encouragement, they'll all be happy. My name's Tony. I am so glad you joined us. If you joined us on the live or you joined us on the replay, hey, that's how we work. This is a Higher Calling Fundraising Solutions, or Higher Calling Auctions. We're here to help the community. Let us know how we can do that. Reach out to us. We're on Facebook. We've got the website. Looking forward to it. And if you have an organization that you would like us to spotlight, go ahead and send us a contact at Toney@highercallingfundraising.com. Thanks. Have a great day, and we'll see you soon.